The team that I think people should be watching pretty closely in free agency is a team that's no stranger to the group chat. The Los Angeles Lakers, honestly. And it's mainly for three guys whose contract negotiations I find to be pretty fascinating. Of course, you got Rui Hachimura, who is a restricted free agent coming off of his rookie deal. You wonder, he had an incredible postseason, the best basketball of his life by far in the biggest moments of his life, which that very rarely lines up, and it lined up perfectly for him. But because he's a restricted free agent and teams probably have a sense that the Lakers are going to do what it takes to keep him in house, I wonder if that depresses his market. And so I'm fascinated to see where his number ends up. Same with Austin Reaves, who his ascent started at towards the end of the season while LeBron was sitting, continued in the playoffs. Maybe he wasn't his best self against the Warriors, but man, if he didn't make Klay Thompson want to kick his ass by the end of that series against the Golden State Warriors. And so for similar reasons, but because he's got the arenas rule that applies to his deal, I think his contract is going to be kind of artificially depressed for those same reasons. And last but not least, my personal favorite whipping boy, D'Angelo Russell. I'm just fascinated to see what they do with this guy, because I don't think he should be paid more than Austin Reaves. Quite frankly, he's just, to me, he's not a better player. But in the regular season, he does do things that are valuable as far as his scoring, his secondary playmaking, the fact that he can make 2-point shots at a pretty decent clip. So I'm fascinated to see the game that the Lakers are going to play with D'Lo. And then, last but not least, and I don't want to get the aggregators going, settle down now, but there feels like there's just something bubbling underneath the surface between Bron and the Lakers organization. Just the way Pelinka's puffing his chest out about, we're not abandoning our young guys and blah, 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 blah. And we know Bron's desire to always be, improving the roster at any cost, no matter what the future might hold. I'm really excited to see what the Lakers do with this offseason.
I don't think you have to make the note to the aggregators when LeBron is out here threatening to take his ball and go home. I think that's...
Yes, I forgot. That was so long ago. That was so many Michael Malone disses ago that I forgot about the quasi-retirement already.
Well, Justin, where do you want to start as Mr. Laker?
Yeah.
You want to start with Austin Reaves, who's probably the best of these players? Where should we go from here?
Well, I do think Wad's kind of hit at the interesting tension point, whereas it does feel like LeBron is motioning that he wants some higher level help in the vein of one Russell Westbrook, because that worked so well for them last time. But the Lakers are putting up a fight and saying, we're going to pretty much usher in this next era because that's what's best for you. And more importantly, that's what's best for the organization. And so I think you find ourselves kind of in a similar situation you have with LeBron at this stage of his career with a new franchise, which is the team wants one thing because they have a longer outlook, and LeBron wants to emphasize the immediate. I think there's a way to strike a balance, though. I think there is a way, and I would have to look up the cap mechanics for this. I'm doing this on the fly, but I'm pretty sure that they can still swing a sign-in trade for a high-level veteran, for instance, like a Fred VanVleet, while keeping some of their young guys. So if they could end up with Hachimura, with Reaves, have a young foundation, but bring in a high-level guy to raise their ceiling, but not to the level of a Kyrie Irving, I think that would be successful. But obviously that is going to be difficult because, as I think we're going to talk about, Fred VanVleet is going to have a lot of suitors.
Yeah, Fred's going to have a lot of suitors, and I think to make those sorts of mechanics work, they would be contingent on there being a market for D'Angelo Russell, for example, which I just don't think there is. I think that he's ultimately probably going to end up back with the Lakers for that reason. It just kind of makes too much sense, even despite the fact that he was not exactly essential to the rotation by the end of their postseason run. But that is why the Lakers are interesting. They're always at these tension points in terms of needing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. They are accustomed to a certain style of living and a certain style of star power and acquisition that, honestly, given what they have right now, just might not be logistically all that feasible. unless you want to get into like the Kyrie Irving kind of conversation, which, I mean, Dallas certainly needs him as much as ever, given the way that their offseason is kind of shaping up. But more than that, if you are the Lakers, that's not really the answer. And so I think this middle ground approach, honestly, it does make sense. Reaves obviously is a very important piece to bring back. Rui, I would be a little bit nervous about paying a lot of money, just given the fact that he's had an incredibly inconsistent career, shot the hell out of the ball in the playoffs in a way we've never seen before, which makes me raise an eyebrow.
But crazily. Like it was ridiculous, the shot making that was there. It wasn't just his spot up game. He was making stuff off the dribble. He was taking, sort of long twos that were going in. His post game when they would put smaller guys on him, where he would just bully guys to the. We've never seen Rui Hachimura play this way. It kind of reminds me, different circumstance, but like, it made me think of this. I don't know if you guys remember when Josh Richardson first came up with the Heat and the guy could not miss a freaking three to save his life. And everybody was just like, how are the Heat doing? What is going on? And it's my belief that he's still skating off of that reputation when he first burst onto the scene in the NBA. And he's never really gotten there again, particularly as a shooter. Right. And I don't want to curse Rui to that destiny. Right. I would love to see him become some consistent 38% shooter on high volume. That would mean incredible things for Laker fans. But man, I don't know how you pay him based off of what he did in the postseason. That seems insane to me.
Josh Richardson out here just looking for like a cap exception this summer, hoping to latch on with some team.
Bro, how many deals?
Waz is just slapping him upside the head.
I'm just saying,
what do you do to deserve this?
How many teams since then have thought Josh Richardson was like the answer to their 3-and-D needs and all of that stuff, all based off of how he came into the NBA?
Once traded for Jimmy Butler in a sign-in trade.
Lord,
remember those halcyon days?
On my soul. Jesus Christ.
Unfortunately for the Lakers, it seems like it's going to take longer to dig themselves out of the Russell Westbrook mess than it did to get into it. And your mileage on how unfortunate that may be depends on how much you think LeBron put his foot to the pedal there and made that Westbrook deal happen in the first place. I think they could be a really interesting team with just like some moves, but being more patient, in part because, as we talked about before, this team is actually pretty good at drafting. The track record extends back well before LeBron. It's funny, right before we went on here, I saw on Instagram, I think it was a House of Highlights video where it's like the 2017 Summer League Lakers went crazy. And I was like, what the fuck are we talking about? But the team actually went crazy because it was like,
in fact, go crazy?
Kuzma, it was wild. It was wet and wild. Kuzma, Lonzo, Ingram, Caruso. Like it was like all of the hits. Zubac was on that team.
Wow.
Like they actually are pretty good at drafting, and like they ushered in a new one this year. I think people are pretty mixed on that pick, but like if they just have like a cadre of young guys plus some of these veterans that we all seem to like Reaves, like this could be an interesting team in 2 years. But unfortunately, LeBron's gonna be 40 at that point.
There were more Laker fans at the Thomas and Mack Center that summer than I think there were at many like Charlotte Bobcats and San Antonio Spurs games this year. Like it was the roof was blowing off that place for Lonzo Ball Summer League basketball.
Yeah, and so much so that they Summer League, the powers that be at Summer League were like, yo, we can't just be putting real games in the small gym. Like, we actually have to plan out the schedule for freaking Summer League depending on who's playing. So, yeah, that was definitely a legendary Summer League moment. But my thing is, as mad as LeBron wants to get, this is a team that went to the conference finals last year. That can't be forgotten. Again, they dispatched Golden State and Memphis pretty easily. Some might say that the Nuggets dispatched them just as easily, but I would kind of disagree. A lot of those games came down to the wire. I think the Nuggets had to sweat for a few of those wins. And I think with some tweaks, they could be knocking on the door and giving the Nuggets some trouble and be just as good, if not better again, than Golden State and the Sacramentos and teams of that nature. So, that's why I want to watch what they do, because they did get so, like, this was like 10-degree burns from the Russell Westbrook deal, right? That deal damn near killed them as a team. And so, this is why I'm really fascinated by what Rob Pelinka and the rest will do.
Yeah, and there's room for us here to say, like, okay, we're a little concerned on how they get better. We're a little concerned on some regression to the mean stuff with some of these role players. But ultimately, you're right, Woz. Like, this is a team that even before the playoffs, we were forecasting for next season. Like, could this be, I think you brought this up, as like a 50-win roster going forward. I was highly skeptical and proven very wrong about the Lakers' chances. We're all about accountability on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think what they are playing for, and I think what makes me a little bit nervous, is I would love to see them lock in more solid playoff positioning, right? You don't want to have to play your way in again. You want to get a solid top 6 seed. And that's going to come down to how much can LeBron play? How much can AD play? Because if you're relying on, D'Lo carrying you for a 2-week stretch in January, I don't know that you're going to get that again. Like, he had those moments last season. I wouldn't necessarily bet on it again. And so they're going to have to cobble it together on the fly, but they've shown an ability to do that.
Speaking of which, this just reached my mind because Kawhi just got knee surgery. Which the Clippers, they just passed it. They just said, it's just a cleanup. Just a surgery on your freaking knee, invasion of the knee. It's just a cleanup, guys. It's just like, when you go to the dentist and you get the clean, it's just like that, but with your freaking knee. Kawhi just got that. What's going on with LeBron's foot? There was a surgery.
I was waiting for the connection here. I was like, oh, the Lakers need just the cleanup job?
What's going on with LeBron's foot? Is he getting surgery? Is he just going to play on this thing for the rest of his career? Like, I'd love to get an update on that. I won't hold my breath, but yeah, because Rob just mentioned guys need to play so that they can get a decent seeding and they're not fighting for their lives the minute that the play-in starts. I wonder what's going to happen with LeBron's knee and if he's going to have to need a surgery or if he's just going to go in and be like, whatever, F it. The LeBron James of feet said I don't need surgery and this is how I'm going to proceed for the rest of my career.
How delicious would it be if we went full circle here and then LeBron is taking cues from Kyrie and is threatening to delay surgery now before he goes into the season unless they do something? It's the grasshoppy sort of situation.
Yeah, the student is
I don't know about that grammatical structure. But look, never rehab on company time. Or only rehab on company time. This is very important lessons.